Javier, how far are we from an official result?
Very close, very close. Indeed, in relation to the figures you gave, what remains is 0.205% of votes to be counted. And the advantage that Mr. Castillo has over Fujimori is 0.412. So even if Ms. Keiko Fujimori won every single vote of the 0.205% votes that remain to be counted, she could not overcome Mr. Castillo's advantage. So we could safely say, based on the figures, official figures that we have been given by the official authorities, that Mr. Castillo will be the next president of Peru. This is the very latest figures that we have just received from the Office of Electoral Processes in Peru, the organization that organizes and counts every vote. In fact, I have the website in front of me, and that's the figures that I'm giving you are the figures that they have just released.
Okay, it's going to be interesting, and we'll see what happens with the allegations of irregularities that Fujimori is talking about. As we say, totally unproven at the moment. Tell us about Pedro Castillo. What grade of leftist is he? Would he call himself a socialist, or is he more of a communist? In some ways, he reminds me of Evo Morales, former union leader who became president of Bolivia.
I think Evo Morales would be the closest you can possibly use as a parallel. He's not a communist. No way. I mean, in fact, that's one of the words that the right use to try to sort of convince people not to vote for him. He's a communist. He's not a communist. In fact, he's socially conservative. He's against abortion. He's against marriages, etc., etc. But he wants to change the economy. He's made very clear that he's not going to nationalize companies. He wants just the companies, as you have just had a report, not before this one, about fair share of taxing. He just wants companies to pay more taxes than they usually pay at the moment. And he wants that most profits remain in Peru. 70% of profits remain in Peru. And he's planning to have meetings with the private sector to convince them that it is fair that they pay their fair share of taxes to improve the budgets of education and infrastructure in Peru. But there's nothing particularly sort of subversive or communist about that. So in that respect, he's considered far left. In a country like Peru, somebody with ideas like his are considered far left. But he's not a far left. He's, as I said to you, socially conservative. But he has made it very clear that he's going to respect the private sector. In fact, one of his top advisors, Pedro Castillo, is a former World Bank economist who's been advising him. And he even offered the post of prime minister to Ricardo Belbon, a famous businessman, a former mayor of Lima. So no, he's not by any stretch of the imagination any far left person. He's a lefty, yes, but he's not far left as they want to describe him. And of course, he has to moderate his speech because it was pretty radical when he started his campaign in October 2020. He had to moderate and he had to negotiate with other people on the left to say, look, you cannot be that radical. There's things that you cannot do. You have to respect the private sector, but we want the private sector to pay their fair share of taxes in Peru.
In some ways, he's sort of an outsider, certainly compared to Fujimori, because her dad used to be president, completely discredited Alberto Fujimori, of course. But I believe that out of the past 10 presidents your country has had, 7 have either had allegations of corruption put against them or have been found guilty of corruption. So how does Castillo manage to change the nature of Peruvian politics?
You have the parallel that you established with the old Fujimori in 1990. It's spot on, Adnan, because that's what happened. The problem was that he became a dictator later, but that's another matter. In relation to the president, he's never held public office. He's never been an MP. He's never been a major. He's been a union leader. Therefore, there's no charges of corruption against him because he hadn't got the chance, if that is the case, to be corrupt. So in that respect, that's one of the reasons why people voted for him and did not vote for Fujimori, because Fujimori, as you said, is the daughter of a corrupt dictator who is serving a jail sentence because of corruption and human rights abuses. And she's never disowned her father. She's always supported and defended her father. I mean, people say, hang on a second, this means that she's going to be as corrupt as her father. Therefore, we are not going to vote for her. So he's clean. There's no cases against him. Many members of Mr. Fujimori's entourage are being processed for corruption, alleged corruption cases. Only one member of Mr. Castillo's party is being convicted of a corruption case, and then he's been marginalized within his political party. So yes, he's totally clean because there's no way he never had access to the money and the power that people had to be corrupt. So that's why many people opted for Mr. Castillo.
Javier, thank you. We always appreciate your analysis on TRT World. Javier Farje speaking to us from London.